This is Learning to Dad
I'm the cool dad. That's my thing.
with Tyler Ross.
What I do have are a very particular set of skills.
I'm gonna have fun, and you're gonna have fun.
Into it, everything from founding a limousine service to becoming a medium and mentored under a psychic, and like all over the place, grandmother, like. But I'm excited to talk to you, Phyllis. So
thank you.
Okon, is that how you pronounce your last name?
Okon.
Phyllis
Okon. Yeah.
Coming from Long Island, New York. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. How's your day going?
It's great.
Awesome. Well, so in looking at this, I already mentioned it a little bit at the beginning, but you and your husband, your late husband, over 50 years ago, founded a limousine service.
We did.
Oh my gosh, at 55, you started writing, and you produced over 80 books in that short time, which is amazing, under different handles, it sounds like.
Right.
And like even being a top Amazon seller. And then you've since gotten into being a medium, which I think is fascinating so much. I'm just looking at all of these. So I would love to know about being a medium, and what you have here is demystifying mediumship to enable a new generation to embrace it.
Okay.
Talk to me about that.
I always went to mediums. Since I was maybe 31 the first time I went to a medium, and it was kind of, I went with my husband and my parents. It was kind of like, evening entertainment. I mean, now of course you have on TLC or TV shows, you have the Long Island medium, you have Tyler, I don't remember his last name, but the kid in California, you have Thomas John, the seatbelt psychic, John Edward. So mediumship is more accessible, but 35 years ago it wasn't as accessible. And so we had, a friend of mine called and said that my husband's name had come up during the reading, and would I be interested? So we went, and back then you had to call on a phone between 2 hours on a Thursday night, and if you got through, and we got through, and we went, and it was astonishing. We went in totally skeptical, and we left feeling like our whole world had shifted. And it's a 2-hour thing. We went in a gallery, a group, but we watched other people being read. We saw we saw things come out that it just didn't fit. Like if I saw a man with a woman, I figured they were a mother and a son there for a father that was gone, and it was actually an aunt and her nephew there for her sister, his mother. So it was the kind of thing, it was unexpected. And that started us on a journey, and then we started checking out other mediums along the way. And I would go, as I lost my parents, I would go to the mediums and get words of comfort from them, and I'd get a message from my parents. And it even got to the point where before my mom died, I gave her a task. I told her that she should let us know that she's okay with a symbol. And sure enough, the symbol started showing up. So when I lost my husband, and it was expected, he had been sick for about 15 years, and he finally succumbed to the cancer. And we had also worked up a code between us that I would go but I was going like every week to a medium because I missed him. We were together for 48 years. And I went to a fair, and at this fair, 3 mediums said to me, "You should be doing this. You can do this." I had always thought of it as a gift, that these people had special connections or whatever. The last person I met that day said, "I'm going to teach you." And that was in December of 2019. And he started to teach me through the phone, through FaceTime. On Fridays, he would give me lessons. And I was beginning to get, I felt like things were beginning to happen. Then the pandemic happened. I was locked in the house, and I have a day job, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. I'm the CEO of a transportation company. And of course, there was no transportation during the pandemic. So I found myself alone in the house. I couldn't see my kids, even though they lived close. And so I started studying mediumship with many different teachers. Like I looked them up on the web, and everybody was offering courses. And of course, Zoom was a new thing. Well, for me, it was a new thing. And I started taking lessons. And I took a mentorship with Thomas John. And out of 86 students, he only endorsed me.
Wow.
So my sons had a podcast. They had started podcasting. And they invited me on the podcast. And they brought people in and said, "Okay, Ma, go ahead and read them." And I was like, "What?" And I did. And the next day, my daughter-in-law found a name for me. My son set up a website, and I started taking, I started doing readings. And now I teach.
So
I've taken what I've learned, and I have right now I have 2 classes.
I think it's important for people listening so that they can understand the difference between being a psychic and being a medium and being like a theta healer or something.
There's a big difference. There's a
Yeah.
big difference. A medium connects with your relatives or your loved ones on the other side and gets messages. And I'm an evidential medium, so I will bring information through that's not commonly known. Like it's not something you can find on Facebook. Like it would be like that your father had a special nickname for you, or that the night he died you didn't make it there on time and he doesn't want you to worry about it, or whatever it is. Those are the kind of messages that I give. A psychic connects to the universe and tells you, kind of gives you guidance on which way to go. Oh, you're having trouble with your job, so maybe you should look into another field, or whatever. They give you past, present, and future. While medium does get that information, I do tend to shy away from it because I don't want to influence a person. My main goal is to bring them the same comfort that I looked for when I lost my husband, to give those messages that maybe they didn't get a chance to hear, or to resolve issues that were, you weren't talking at the time of the person's death, and or if there's something going on in their life, for people to know that they're not alone. That's what I do.
If and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if there is a space for that with you and I to do over the course of our recording at some point, I would love to do that
Sure.
if you're willing.
Sure.
Is that something that usually requires you to kind of
No,
prepare?
I don't require. No, I like it either. It just comes through. If I usually turn it off when I'm doing something, like because I've got my thinking brain on, but information does come through, and how it's done with me, I'll get a picture, an image, or whatever it is, whatever I see, hear, or feel, I will tell you about it. For instance, I could see something like a bottle like this, and you're going to go with, "Oh my God, I had a dream about a bottle like that last night." It's all unconnected for me, but it usually has meaning for you. And typically I see spirit. If they're behind you, it's parents or grandparents. If they're to the sides of you, it's a contemporary, sibling, spouse, a friend, but it could be a contemporary from when you were 5 years old. And God forbid, again, if they're in front of you, it's a child, but it doesn't have to be your child. But I do see children around you, and I do know that you teach, so I don't know if you've lost a student because it doesn't feel like it's your child. But I will tell you, behind you I have a father figure. I don't know if it's your father or a grandfather, but there is a male figure. So I'm going to ask you, is your father here or your father's on the other side?
He's here.
He's here. So I'm going to go a generation behind, and there's a grandfather that's on the other side. Were you close with this one particular grandfather?
So I had my dad's dad died a couple years ago. My mom's stepfather, who I knew as my grandfather, and the closest grandfather I was to probably died when I was in college. And then my biological maternal grandfather I never met.
Yeah, I kind of feel this. It feels like it's your father's father.
Mm-hmm.
Like it feels in that direction. I am picking up on certain initials like CH or CHR, like Christopher, Charles. So if there's anybody living or dead with the name Charles or Christopher, that CHR sound, is there anyone in the family?
There was a Bill Schooley, a James.
Yeah, don't tell me their names.
Okay.
Let them work. But
Yeah.
if you don't recognize it, and I'm going to ask you, you're married?
Yes.
Okay, that could also be your wife's family or your spouse's family, because we all meet up on the other side. So is your father-in-law on the other side?
Yes. No, not my
Okay.
father-in-law. My wife's maternal grandfather. Yes.
Grandfather. Okay. I feel like this is, again, I'm going to go back. And who served? Who was in like the Navy or the who served? Who wore a uniform? Which
Yeah,
one
all-
of these men? They all did.
All four. Yeah.
All four of them. Was one in particular? I'm feeling like naval, and I'm feeling officer. Was one of them naval officer?
I don't know their history that well to say, honestly.
Because what I see is a white uniform.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking me to Annapolis, and that doesn't mean, I mean, they didn't have to go to Annapolis, but that's where they show me an image, and then we try to fix it. So ask your wife, ask your dad, ask your mom if any one of them was in the Navy or in a branch similar. And I almost feel like it wasn't in combat, like almost like they worked behind the scenes, like they might have worked as in, what's it called, a JAG, one of those JAG units, like somebody was an attorney or something like that. But I'm not getting like an actual combat person. So I
Yeah.
don't know if that narrows it down for you.
Yeah, my paternal grandfather was actually worked in the morgue.
Okay.
In that respect, in Korea, but
Okay.
I'm not certain which branch.
Which
But
branch?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. He's a uniform, didn't work with actual combat, but worked behind the scenes. So and again, I felt like it was coming from him. So, but he wasn't a career soldier. Like he served and then he wasn't a career soldier.
Right.
And he showed me two. So usually it's two kids or two sons. But I feel like who has two sons? Which one of you? Is it your father is one of two sons, or you
Yep.
one of two sons?
Yeah, my dad is one of two.
One of two sons. So he has two sons. And I want to ask, one of them has who has your grandfather's name in their name? Like, which, is it a son or a grandson, but somebody has part of either as a middle name, but I'm feeling like he's telling, what they show me, it's a stupid thing, but they show me a red bouncing ball. So I know that means the name is repeated within the family.
Yeah, my father is the second.
Okay, so he's the second. And is it safe to say that he and your father were close?
It's yes and no. Yeah.
There were periods of did his father separate from his mother? Was there a part where there was a separation? So I'm getting a separation.
So this could be my maternal grandfather, who was military. He was actually in the Battle of the Bulge, so he did see combat, but they separated as a result of an illness.
Okay, so it could be that's what they call piggybacking. Someone else is coming in, because what I have is somebody who's separated from the family.
And
So
he's got
this
that
grandfather
CH.
separated from the family, and there's unresolved issues because he separated.
Mm-hmm.
So this
Yeah.
is your mom's biological father, correct?
Yes.
And so is there a G name in there? George, Gladys, Gertrude? I'm feeling like an old-fashioned woman's name.
Oh, it's a John.
Okay,
There's the
John.
just,
I'm not trying to fit them, but G and J do fit in because
Sure.
it's the just sound. But I'm also feeling a female. Now I want to ask you: the woman who was married to him is your grandmother, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's your grandmother, and
Yeah.
that's your mom's mom. And is she on the other side?
She is.
Right. And was she very close with you? What I'm getting is that she kind of had to take care of the kids alone. That she had the responsibility of the children.
That's correct.
Right. And that she had to kind of do it on her own in a time when it was really hard. There wasn't much help for women. But this was a tough gal. And I also, I don't know I don't know where this belongs, but I am getting alcoholism somewhere in one of these men. That one of them had a problem. I don't know if you want me to stop there, but
No,
I am
it's okay.
picking up on alcoholism, on addiction of sorts. And it feels like it's this one, your maternal grandfather.
That's very possible. That would not
Yeah.
surprise me. Yeah.
Right.
My grandmother, she actually passed with, like I was on FaceTime with her when she passed.
Wow, with your grandmother?
Yeah.
Right. And your mom had no relationship with her dad?
Correct.
And your mom is here. She's alive, correct?
Yeah. She had limited up through high school. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's angry at your grandfather? Is anger?
I'd have to ask.
Yes, because what I'm getting is kind of like an anger, there has to be some kind of resolution between her and him.
Yeah.
That
I'll have to explore that with her.
Yeah. But I feel like there's a lot of activity over there with resolution between mom and your father, your grandfather.
Yeah, that's really good. I can't wait to talk to her about it and maybe encourage her to go explore that more. And I would learn so much from listening to her experience, considering those things for sure.
Right. And I want to go next to you. Did you lose a friend, a male friend, somebody you were pretty close with, tragically?
Not to the other side, but I did lose a close friend recently.
You lost a close friend recently, because I'm picking up, this is not a brother, this is not a spouse, but I am picking up somebody to the side of you that you were friends with, and that they passed. And usually they pass in a multitude of different ways, but it was an illness, something crept up on him. I feel almost as though it caught him unawares. Does that make sense to you?
There's a not less than one. Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't a car accident where he didn't. There's several ways that young people pass. So I'll feel an impact, or I'll feel like that it was sudden and an accident. But I'll also know sometimes when a person kind of is responsible for their own passing. And what I feel here is a growing weakness, like almost as though he's being buffeted from all sides, and that this illness kind of creeps up on him. And by the time he's diagnosed, it's really, it's all over the place. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and that happened in this building within the last 2 years.
Right. And that CH name is very strong. It's not going away. So I don't know who that's. You have to do a little homework and see, and it could be even Chad, but I'm picking up on a CH name.
Yeah. There was a Charles in there.
Okay, all right, because they're bringing that name back. And this person, did he have a dog?
That I don't know.
Oh, so you weren't close enough, because he's showing me a dog. So I don't know if that's the connection, but you can ask whoever's with, like whoever you speak to over there.
Yeah. And
also an R name like Ryan or
Ryan is my sister, funny enough.
Oh, Ryan's your sister?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I would never think Ryan is a girl's name, but hold on there. So Ryan's your sister. Is she related to this person, like in any way, shape, or form that passed? Did she know them?
I don't have a particular person in mind of somebody that's passed that I was close to recently.
Did Ryan lose somebody? Maybe it's related to her.
She may have. But
ask your sister if any of that makes sense.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Most certainly. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. I do something else. I wrote this book called 366 Affirmations and Inspirations to Live By. And I ask people to pick a number 1 through 366. And let's see if this is a message to you and if it applies to anything in your life. So pick a number, any number at all.
44.
And I opened to 44 without even trying, so that's really funny. What it says on that is, I love what I love, and that's okay. So I don't know if that applies to anything in your life. If you maybe got a lot of flack when maybe you wanted to do something for a living, or whatever you wanted to do, and people said you're crazy, you're not going to make a business out of it, whatever. And the affirmation for you, or the message to you, is it's okay. You're going to make something out of this. It's okay to love something that's totally different and unexpected from what the mainstream goes by. Life is different now. There's a gig economy, and you can do all sorts of things. If you would have told me that I'd be doing this, that I'd actually be teaching it, I would say, never happened, and here I am.
Yeah, it's amazing, and for you to be open to that, to only really start more recently is pretty amazing too. What was it, that event in your life, your husband passing, that really
Yes.
kind of brought you to that?
Yeah. I had a full life. I mean, I'm running a car service. I write. I've published 83 books. I publicize them. I do the promotion. You know what promotion? You do your own kind of social media. I do promotion. I'm pretty busy. I didn't need the extra work, but I wanted. It's kind of like the whole thing of give a man a fish and he eats for the day, teach a man to fish and he eats for a lifetime. I mean, the fact that I've got 41 students now and I'm helping all these people. Doing mediumship is kind of, you become self-aware. There's a lot of self-awareness that kind of, you teach self-defense, you teach jujitsu, right? So you kind of have to get familiar with your body. And doing jiu-jitsu, you kind of learn to control your body and your muscles, right? Where when we walk, we don't think about it. But when you've studied jiu-jitsu or Krav Maga or whatever it is, you learn to be aware that if you're going to put your foot in a certain way, X, Y, Z can happen. Or you're aware of your surroundings. You look at things differently, kind of like a kaleidoscope that it comes into focus. It's the same thing with this. You become self-aware.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden you start to see signs and you go, they've been around me all this time. I just never noticed them. So it's the same kind of concept.
So there was a time where I was very interested. I'd spoken to a psychic that I adore, and like high-level astrologers. I've been certified in how to do Reiki. I've taken theta classes and had incredible experiences where me and somebody else tune in a way that, like, we open our eyes and suddenly we had the exact same experience and
Right.
share it. And I've been super far away from that in my life over the years, and I'd like to reconnect to it. And so I almost feel like I did a disservice to you when you were going through the exercise with me. And so I'm sorry that I wasn't more helpful with that.
No, it's
aspect.
okay. Let me tell you something. I get calls from people that they'll say, no, this doesn't make sense. And then 2:00 in the morning, when they've relaxed and they're falling asleep, all of a sudden it crystallizes and they go, oh my God, how did I forget about Uncle Harry?
Yeah.
Or I forgot about my friend so-and-so. So that a lot of it, you're listening and you're listening hard. Usually people are listening for one specific bit of information, and that's normal. So that's why we record it. And we tell people, record it, put it on your phone, and then listen to it later. My son takes all the transcripts from every medium that we go to, and because the whole family goes, and he'll write up, a thing on, one of the document savers that we have. And then when we want to know something, we type in Grandpa, and then all of a sudden everything that was written about that we were told about Grandpa will come up, and we go, oh my God, how did we miss that? Because it applies later. But maybe whatever I said didn't apply to you, and you're going to go home and tell your wife, and she's going to say, that was all for me. So you never know.
No, I think it's beautiful when those things finally connect and you go, because it would be easy to say, well, you're just coming up with keywords and things that somebody could pull something from. But I genuinely think that
I did a
connections.
podcast with a group of skeptics, and I'm fine with it. Like, I'm not here to convince anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to defend it. I'm not here to tell you it's right. If a person says they don't believe, I'm not here to make them believe. That's okay. Viva la difference. I question it myself. There are times when I'll be doing a reading and I'll feel that sometimes I'm just rattling things off, and I don't know, maybe it is coming from my imagination. But then when you get a direct hit, for instance, I did a reading a few weeks ago, and I was getting things, but I didn't feel that she was super impressed. And I said to her, your husband is taking me to his last day, and he's telling me you were holding his hand, and that you whispered something to him. And she goes, yes, yes, that's all appropriate. And I said, I don't know, but like you whispered something to him like, let go. And she goes, I didn't do that. That was my interpretation of it. Again, I see a bottle. I don't know what kind of bottle it is. And I go, okay. And I go on to say a few other things. And then all of a sudden, I felt her husband just suck the air out of my body. I felt a deep breath, not scary or anything. It's all a feeling. And I felt like the air come out of me, that like this kind of. He took me then to my mother's last breath, which I watched her take this last shuddering breath that left her body. And I said, your husband is taking me back to that last moment when I said you were holding his hand, because I saw their hands clasped like this. And she goes, yes. And I said, he just took the deepest breath. And I don't know why that's significant, but I felt like this breath come from the bottom of my feet up. And she started to cry. And she said, you remember you said that I whispered something to him? I said, yes. She said, well, she was holding his hand, and she looked at him and she realized he was gone. She climbed into the bed, she put her arms around him, and she whispered in his ear, take one last breath for me. And he gave one last breath and expelled. I just got the chills. Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's like, that makes it worthwhile. I mean, that was a hit of all hits.
So
You know?
how has this experience and experiences like that like changed the way that you interact with people at the transportation service? Like, I imagine you become more empathetic. I know that's a hard segue.
I was always empathetic. I'm always, listen, I've always been sympathetic, empathetic. I've always been nice. My parents taught me, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it. I mean, we were brought up with manners around there, so it's the kind of thing. But I do read a lot of my colleagues. You know, we will be sitting on a Zoom, and if I get something, even with my clients, I'll be on a Zoom and I'll say, we'll be talking about car service, and then I'll say something like, if you want to stay on afterwards, I think I have a message for you. And, you know, if they're open to it, they stay on. And I just did a reading 2 days ago for somebody. It was a booked reading, and it was a husband and wife. And he was a total skeptic. He totally didn't believe. And she was kind of on the fence. And I didn't ask if he believed, but he was crying by the time we finished. So I must have told him something that really struck a chord that meant something to him. And it was just really interesting. But yeah, I think I was always sympathetic, but I think I'm able to perform a service now that I couldn't have performed before.
And so you sound like you have so much variety of experience professionally, from, you know, one-on-one consultations to teaching people to more, I don't know if you feel like how involved you were at the beginning of the business to how involved you are now with respect to BLS, the limousine service. But like, talk to me about running a business like that.
Well, we started in a kitchen. I was a social studies teacher, and my husband was an immigrant, and he needed help. And this was the days before cell phones. It was, you know, there were no radios in the cars. And he asked me if I would stay home and help. And I said I would stay home and help if I could quit my job and have a child. So I quit teaching. And I ordered the Yellow Pages for Los Angeles, and I had an egg timer. And I sat with the Yellow Pages, and I cold called and brought in accounts that way with the egg timer, because we didn't have enough money to pay for long distance calls. And we built the business. I've done every job. I've dispatched. I've been the salesperson. I've done every job within that company. My husband drove. He was a mechanic. My kids, who are now adults, one is president, one is COO. They've held every job within the company. To date, we have about 700 employees. We're in 11 different cities. No, it's big service. We're the largest privately owned, family-run car service. And, you know, we built up a huge business. We just opened in London. And at this point, I'm CEO. I go to work every day. We have an office. We have two offices in New York. I have a garage in Astoria, and I have an office in Long Island, and I go there, and that's the billing office. There's also a reservation center. I have a reservation center in Atlanta. I have an office in Atlanta, an office in Boston. We have an office in Vegas and LA. We've got multiple offices with staff. We have an event staff that goes out and does the Oscars, I don't physically do those things, but I basically go in and make sure everybody's paycheck is good on Monday morning.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that your business had scaled to be even international and to
Yes.
be operating all of that. 700 employees is incredible. At what point did that tipping point happen where you went from that one car to we're scaling?
We bought the first car, $1,200. I borrowed money from my kid brother. And we bought the first car. It was Jacob Javitz's limo, the senator from New York. And my husband would drive. And then with our wedding money, we bought another car. And then, we built the fleet slowly. I think what happened was we did local work, weddings, proms, that kind of stuff. And there was a company in LA that needed a New York affiliate. So they approached a friend of ours that my husband knew, and he didn't want it. So he asked my husband if he wanted it. And we, of course, said, yes, we'll be their New York affiliate. And they primarily did the film industry. And so we started getting their work. They would get a percentage for giving us the work. And at that point, I think we had 3 cars. And every person that sat in the car, I would get friendly with their secretary and say, give me a lead, give me another lead. Tell me who's in the office next to you. And I started to build up a clientele that way. Then we had 6 cars, and then we got like a bunch of TV shows in New York. And then we had 12 cars, and then I had to move it out of the house. I operated up to 6, 7 cars in the house. I had a huge radio tower over my house. It was in my kitchen. I had dispatch. I would be cooking, and my kids would be saying 10-4 to the drivers. They would be helping out, and we were doing a lot of people, and I didn't leave the house because I didn't have a cell phone. If I left, I would take the phone off the hook and run. There's a famous story of my son had dropped Cheerios on the carpet upstairs, and I had to go vacuum it, and the phone rang, and I missed the phone call. And so I went to my phone book. Back then I had a handwritten phone book, and I called every person in that phone book till I found which client had called. I got to R, and the guy said, I told him the story. I arranged his pickup, and he said to me, "You're going to go far. You're going to do something." And he was one of the founders of HBO, so it's like. He put his trust in me, and I drove, we took care of him until he passed. But, for each person we drove, nobody got out of that car without recommending us to somebody else. It was all word of mouth. And we would go to LA with the kids. My husband would sit in the car, and I would go into the offices and talk to people into using us. We would follow the leads, and that's what we did. And we built the business car by car. I had at one point 8 people working in my basement doing billing until we moved it out. And then we purchased our buildings. We bought our facilities. My husband was a mechanic. We set up mechanic shops. We did a lot of stuff that other people weren't doing. And
I hope that people listening to that genuinely were listening to it. That just the anecdote of going through the phone book and calling every single person, it just shows to me that if I ever need a limousine, I'm calling you guys. Just that level of commitment to service and ensuring that everything goes the way it's supposed to, I think is lost on a lot of people who are looking for immediate success. And
Right.
an instant gratification of scale and profitability, and you're the perfect example of effort over time yielding tremendous results.
Well, you have to understand nothing happens overnight, and we never had other people's money. If I look around my home, I've purchased everything. Everything comes, nothing was given. My parents worked for me. My brothers, well, one of them worked for me. The other brother, his wife worked for us, and when they got divorced, she stayed with us. He ended up building his own business in a similar model, but I'm close with my brother. But the point is, my sons work here. My grandchildren are learning this business. My oldest grandson is already learning how to take reservations. The kids come in, they shred paper, they have responsibility to the business. But it's born from the fact my father owned a hardware store, and I used to go work in the hardware store after school. We all went and helped. We put away paint cans. We had to help in the store. And it was a hard existence. Nobody helped. My father was a survivor. There was no extra money. There were no parents. My grandmother lived with us. They struggled, my parents. And so we helped. And I remember people would come in and they would ask for a washer for the sink. And my father would comb through boxes and boxes for a little washer or screw for a nickel or 2 cents. But he never let anyone out of that store without finding them what they, even if he said, you know what, I don't have it, head over to Joe's 2 blocks down, or he'd say to my mom, call them and see if they have it, because I learned customer service from someone that it was not about money, it was about having pride in what you do, having a sense. My father showed up, my granddaughter's graduation from middle school is tomorrow. My son, of course, is going. My father didn't go to my middle school. We called it junior high in those days. He didn't go. He had to stay in the store. My father didn't come to my recitals. He worked. He was working. My mother would come. She would come in, watch, and then she had to leave because she went back to the store. So I come from a family that understands commitment, and so that when if I didn't call, that meant paying for a phone bill, or maybe it meant being able to go food shopping, going and finding that. But there's just this pride that we built something that people talk about, and that they say you're the best in the business, and that means a lot.
And I would, growing up in that way, where there really weren't a lot of resources to go around, and you had to focus on making everything perfect and serving customers, I imagine at some point you hit a level of profitability in growing your business that you didn't have to do that to maintain it, but you did it anyway.
Right.
Because that's the way you are, that's the way you grew up. How do you keep your kids staying in that line of thinking with customer service and building the business that you have blood, sweat, and tears in without having the same circumstance?
I think a lot of it comes from, like yesterday was Father's Day, and I was at my son's house, and my other son was there, and my 10-year-old grandson was cooking the barbecue with his father. Like literally, he was flipping burgers, and it was hot, and he'd walk away, and then he'd go, and his dad would say, I'll do it, and he'd go, no, I'm going to do it. It's a sense of, he says, I want to make sure that it's perfect. They call me Bobby. It's perfect for Bobby. There's a sense of respect. You have bands of brothers in the Marines. Well, maybe this should be a band of brothers and sisters in the house. I wanted to go to college very badly, and I knew it was expensive. I had 2 younger brothers. I went to a school that was the cheapest of the schools. I finished it. I studied hard and finished it 3 years so that my parents would not have the burden of my education when my brother went into school. So I worked harder, and I worked 2 jobs while I was in school, so that it made it easy. There's a sense of responsibility. And I think we're so busy on our phones or, whatever it is that we're doing, that we stop talking to each other. And we stop. When was the last time you played a board game with your kid? You got to do these things. You have to talk to each other. And my husband and I, we didn't cultivate friendships. We cultivated our relationship with our sons and with my brothers and their children and my parents. Like every weekend you came here, there was a bunch of family. and lots of hot dogs and hamburgers, and we got to meet the girlfriends. We got to meet, we happen to have all boys, but the thing is that you build your relationship. I think people are too quick to run and look outside. You remember that scene in The Wizard of Oz when she says you could have gone home at any time. There's no place like home. Just click your heels through. There's no place like home. We have to look back and see those values that made us happy in the house. Eating dinner together, shut the phone and eat together.
So
Don't eat in the bedrooms.
So you were building this incredible transportation business, and you start having kids. How did you strike the balance of what used to be, 100% in on working, and now you've got a family also? Like, how did you balance those two?
Well, something's got to give. So maybe the underwear was a shade gray instead of white, and maybe we had some nuclear dust bunnies underneath the bed. My parents helped a lot. I mean, my husband would be out driving. My father would pinch hit back in the early days. My mother worked. She would come over straight from work, and she'd bathe the kids while I was dispatching. So they say it takes a village to build. So, but basically what suffered is I didn't go out with friends. If I had free time, I was with the kids, and they had a keen appreciation and gratitude to the business. They understood that our livelihood, my parents' livelihood, and eventually my brother's livelihood, and then the responsibility. I had 8 people working in their basement. The livelihood of all these people, they knew the drivers, depended on us doing what we had to do. There's a sense of community and responsibility to each other.
Do you think that having those people physically in your house and your kids watching you work was a positive thing for them to see that versus you going to the office and being gone?
I actually think I never thought about it, but they helped. There's a famous story. I was pregnant with my second. I was nauseous. I was throwing up in the first trimester, and Michael was 5 years old, and I had a radio in the house for the drivers. I was dispatching. I dispatched up till 17 cars. At that point, when we got past 17 cars, we started. I brought in people who learned how to dispatch, and I started to hand it away. And I had to throw up. So the phone was, the radio, the driver was looking for information, and I could hear Michael press the button and say, "My mom's throwing up. She'll be right with you. Stay where you are." And he knew what to do. He was 5 years old. He knew what to do. And I was able to get back. But also the clients would hear the kid. They were terrific. They understood. I never lied. I spoke with many famous people, high-powered people, and they would hear a kid crying in the background, or sometimes I was sick. I had the flu one time, and I fell asleep at the kitchen table, and a client woke me up. They understood that this was they really supported us.
I think that's really important for people to hear. I know a lot of moms or dads that either stay at home, work from home, have their kids in the office. They sometimes feel like they got to put their kid in the other room, shut up, don't say anything. I don't want the client to know that you're here. I feel like that pressure is really more self-imposed. I'm hearing a lot of stories about clients understanding that, you're not just, serving me as, dispatching my transportation. You also have a kid on your lap while you're doing this. Do you find that has kind of enhanced your relationship with clients and employees and the rest, or do you think it was better bifurcated?
You know what? I had a great relationship with my clients where they felt they were part of my life. I did things for people, and I think they let me in their life too. Mm-hmm. I remember, and I can't say names, but famous people that you would read about in People magazine, and I was driving their mom or their child, and they trusted us because we'd make sure the PAPs were privy to the information. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that they were understanding, but I also knew my responsibility. And I want to add, my kids could be in the biggest fight. There might have even been blood being drawn. When that phone rang, it shut.
Yeah.
They understood whatever was going on. It shut. Even the dog knew when the phone rang. It was like stop. Like it would just stop. I guess they were well trained. I don't know. But we would have a crowd of people in the house. My parents would be here every weekend. We'd be having a barbecue. The phone would ring. Everybody, all sound stopped. Everybody knew business came because from where that business came, it fed us all.
Talk to me about the evolution of your role as a mom and running a business. Like how did your mom job change over the years?
You know what? I wanted to be a mom more than anything else. That was, I mean, I wanted to be a wife and a mom. I really did. I went to school and I met my husband when I was 16, and I knew that I wanted to be with him, and I wanted kids. I wanted kids. That was what I wanted more than anything. And there's an interesting story. And there was the presidents of production in LA were meeting. They would have a meeting. All these heads of the department production for the movies would get together, and they'd have like a lunch. And so I was on the phone with one of them, and she said, "Phyllis, were your ears ringing the other day?" And I go, "No." And she says, "Oh, we were having a discussion about you." And I said, "Oh, really? What?" And she said, "We were just talking about how everything turned out great. You know, how everything like really is unbelievable." And I went, "Yeah, the kids are great." And she was dead silent. And she said, "We were talking about the business." It never occurred to me she was talking about the business. So being mom was always my priority. And I never let, I mean, if it meant that I was up all night doing what I had to do, I would do what I had to all night, but it didn't interfere. I never missed an assignment with my kids. I never missed bedtime with my kids. Yeah, bath time, so my mom took over that, you know, occasionally. But I was very present in my children's life. And it's all about balancing. So what went? What disappeared? Friendships, running around with the girls, going out, alone time with my husband. Yeah, like, you know, those are the things that, but as the kids grow up, you get those things back. You have, you know, when they're young, it's kind of like the beginning of a recipe. When you're cooking, you've got to pay attention to the ingredients in the beginning. You got to really pay attention to what you're doing. You have to pay attention to the pot. You have to pay attention. But soon you can put it on simmer a little bit and walk away and maybe catch a little TV. And it's the same thing. They reach a certain age and you still have to be in hearing distance. I mean, they still, you hear Ma, and I'm at 45 and 40 years old. I hear Ma, and it's like I drop everything. My phone is still right here in case they need me. One lives a quarter of a mile this way, the other one lives a quarter of a mile that way. Close enough I can be there in a minute, far enough I can't walk and interrupt them. So it's the kind of thing that when you hear that Ma, what else matters? So it wasn't a balancing. It was a balancing act, but I don't think I thought too much about it. I think priorities. It's like it's the best thing in the world is being a parent. I can't think of anything. I don't want to even call it a job. And being a grandparent, oh my God, that is like on steroids. They just grandchildren are like, oh my God, that's the greatest gift in the world.
I couldn't agree with you more on all of that, and I've never seen my parents happier than chasing my kids around. And
it only gets better when you go over and you've got a 16-year-old grandson, and he says, "Come on, let's go watch TV together." You know, and I go, "What about your friends?" He goes, "They'll wait." I mean, that's like amazing. Or, you know, my granddaughters like will call me. Just FYI, I speak to my grandchildren multiple times a week. I always ask them what's going on in their lives. You know, we send each other TikToks and, you know, things that amuse each other.
Mm-hmm.
it's not about buying gifts. It's about knowing what's important in their life. And I speak to, my sons dozens of times a day because we work together, but I speak with my daughter-in-laws at least minimally twice a day just to check in. And what can I say? They're my life. And that's the way I wanted it.
That's so beautiful. I love that so much for you. And the only thing in my life that I'm envious of is that I never get to be a mom. I'll never be a mom.
But you're a dad,
Yeah.
and that is so special. I went to the cemetery this morning with my brother. He's blind. The guy who runs he runs 17 of my corporations. He's blind. Just FYI.
Wow.
So he works. I share an office with him, and I took him to the cemetery. We visited my husband and my parents, and it's Father's Day, and I still get choked up. I miss my dad. My dad was always that guy that I could go to, and he would just cut through the bullshit. I can say that word, right?
Mm-hmm.
He'd cut through the bullshit and just give you a perspective that was so real and honest. And that's something. My mom, she was my best friend. So, it's being a dad is really special.
Yeah, it really is. It's the best, my favorite part of my life.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
It's the favorite part of my life. Honestly, being a wife, a mother, a grandmother.
Yeah, just the best. And Bobby, Lady Phyllis, I could talk to you forever.
Yeah, that's my name tag is Bobby. That's my grandson bought me that when he was 4 years old. Just to give you an idea, he knows I love the color red, so it has like it's supposed to have a little diamond. And he goes, no. And he was 4 years old. He says, yeah, she loves red. See, he had them put a ruby in there, and I never take it off. This is like my favorite piece of jewelry.
I love that. We've got so much we haven't talked about. I mean, we haven't talked about your writing at all. I mean, for you to have written and produced over 80 books is like unfathomable just for a lifetime, let alone, since you were 55 to do that.
What happened was my mom passed away. Like I said, she was my best friend. My mom and my husband got lung cancer within 3 months of each other. Wow. She was terminal. He lasted 15 years. I mean, he was a miracle. But I devoted my life to keeping him alive. With my mom, I knew I just wanted to make her comfortable. She was terminal from the start. But when she died, it was really hard for me. We would read books. We had our own private little book club. We would go to the ballet every Wednesday. We would see Broadway shows. We shopped together. And she worked with me. She was the controller of our company. So I saw her every day of my life. And I really missed her. And so it was the first time in my life I don't get depressed. I experienced depression. I was surprising. I didn't like the feeling. So my son said, write a book. So I wrote a book called Captain No Beard, and he helped me produce it, with Create Space. And the book was named to Kirkus's Best for 2012, which was like, what? Kind of like we blew our minds. So then we were in Vegas, and my grandson asked, what was the Eiffel Tower? How to explain what a cultural icon is to a child. What is the Eiffel Tower? So I started a series called If You Were Me and Lived In, and I took kids to different countries and what your name would be, what the cultural icon. Now, I wrote all these books under a different name, Carol P. Roman. Carol was my mother's name, Roman was my father, and I was the P in the middle. And the books became very big with homeschoolers. My husband said, write. See, he was sick, so writing became my recreation, where I used to spend with my mom, and now I was writing, and then I would just write. I would write 3 or 5 books per week, and they're not big books. I did do a big book. I'll show you. Am I allowed to show?
Yeah, sure.
Grady Will and the Templeton Codex. This book, there's a script that's being shopped around in Hollywood right now. If this becomes a movie, we'll see. So, but this book is young adult. So as the kids grew up, so did my writing. So I started with board books, and then we went to early reader chapter books, and I did fiction and nonfiction, and then I started writing under the name Britt London. I wanted to write adult fiction, so I wrote 3 books as Britt London. Sounds sexy, right? Better than Phyllis, right? And then I write as Phyllis Okon. These are my books for my course. So I wrote these books, and it became very easy to publish. But most of my books are award-winning. One book outsold everything on Amazon. It outsold every book on Amazon for 2 straight months. It outsold 4 million books for 2 straight. It was number 1 on Amazon.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Why do you think you're this way?
I'll tell you a story. When I was, how old are you in 7th grade?
13-ish,
13,
I think.
12, 13. I was 13. I was sitting in Mr. Garland's English class. I remember the teacher's name. And I was watching the clock tick. And I was so bored. And 20 minutes elapsed. And I had 2 aunts that died in the Holocaust. One was 13 and one was 19. They were murdered.
Wow.
And my grandmother was shot. My grandfather was gassed. So I thought about my 2 aunts, and I realized that 13-year-old aunts would not have the opportunity to sit in a classroom and be bored. And at that moment, it was a pivotal moment in my life that I sat up and I took part in the class discussion, and I said I would not waste another minute in their memory, that I would not take time for granted, that I had to respect that we're given opportunity to make the most out of our existence, and I wouldn't squander my time. So from that time on, I made it a point to read as much as I could, and I have to say that my parents and my husband, whatever I wanted to do, they never said, nah, don't do that. They would say, go for it. There was only one thing that they told me not to do. When I was going to college, I wanted to be an attorney. And my parents were like, girls, nah, not a good fit. And this was in the 70s. They said, not really, go be a teacher or a bookkeeper. You want to have kids. And I thought about it. So I opted to become a teacher. I was a social studies teacher. But even still, they gave me every opportunity to learn as much as I could. We've done that for our kids. They showed an interest. We backed it, and we gave them every opportunity, but we never forced them. And the minute they said, I'm done, we were like, okay, you don't have to do it. It's okay. We never forced them to do something they don't want to do.
Everything that you've done, and we've talked about, from being a grandparent to mom to wife to child to sister to all these things, helping build a business to 700 employees, to writing 83 books, to teaching courses now on mediumship, is all amazing. And you're such a kind, thoughtful, committed person. Like, I love you already. Like, I have so much love for you. Like, I hope I get to hug you one day.
Okay.
That'd be wonderful. And I've got, and I bet you just leave a wake of happy people behind you to have met you, and through, like, all these things seem to feed one another too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have no doubt that somebody that's been in one of your limos, somebody that you've treated like family, is going to get a hold of the script that's being shopped on that book, and they're going to go, I remember her. And they're going to put that thing to the top of the stack, and they're going to look at it, and they're going to love it.
The universe does take care of us. And, I think I remember we used to talk about this a lot, my husband and I, that we shouldn't depend on anyone else to make us happy. we're not responsible for other people's happiness, and they're not if you know, and one of the pages in here that I put in is, if the shoe is uncomfortable, change the shoe. I mean, I've had things that I've done that I, you know, I said, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. It's not conducive. It's not going to go anywhere. I was a ballerina. You know, I studied in the city at the ABT, and I studied with Luigi jazz. You know, there came a point where I said, well, I'm not going to make it into a Broadway show. I'm not going to do that. So, but I took that experience and applied it to other parts of my life. But the bottom line is, your happiness doesn't happen. You have to look for it.
Love it. I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions as we kind of get near the end here. But first, could I trouble you for one more page out of your affirmation book?
Sure, go ahead. Any page.
20 was the number I wanted to say, and I went to 44.
20. Okay, so maybe this one feels like you really need to hear this. I forgive all those who have hurt me. Their words have no impact on my soul. So you have to think of who's done something to you that's really tried to undermine your confidence, or they tried to impose their negativity. And you have to understand, their words have no impact on your soul.
Yeah, that resonates.
Good, I'm glad.
Okay, so to our rapid fire, if you were going to design the perfect parent, and you were going to lay the foundation out of 2 or 3 characteristics, what are 2 or 3 characteristics that every super parent should have?
Listen twice as much as you speak. Listen. Really listen to what they're saying. Get to know your kid. Everything else is going to wait. Laundry will wait.
Yeah. Is there a skill that you really enjoyed teaching your kids?
I'll tell you a skill that my kids enjoyed teaching me.
Yeah.
They taught me how to play craps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really good.
Oh, that's fun. Do you take it to Atlantic City every now and again?
Vegas. If you're going to play craps, it's going to be Vegas.
Go to Vegas. Awesome. My dad's if I play, I'll remember it. If I don't play for a week, it all completely goes away. Is there a fictional parent or a real parent figure, whether it's from a TV show, somebody in your life that you always admired?
Well, I just started watching Young Sheldon I'm watching it with my grandkids, and I am in love with Meemaw.
Yeah.
She is a fabulous character. But I love the parents. They're so human and real. I love George and Mary. They are terrific. But particularly, you know, my grandkids keep asking me, which is your favorite character? And I have to say Meemaw. She just...
Awesome. If we suspend reality and money is limitless, time, space, limitless, and you could give a gift to every mother on the planet, what's a gift that you would give to everyone?
You know, it's not about money. It's about I think that they have to remember that you can't drink from an empty cup, and to give themselves a break. My parents always gave me a gimme. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
They always, when I would call them up and say, oh my God, I'm at the end of my rope, they would say to me, take a deep breath. You're a really good parent. You're human. And that's what I would remind every parent. They lost their temper with their kid. They're human. It's okay. You know, I wrote a book called Oh, Susanna. And I wrote it for a lot of the moms out there. But a dad could identify with it too. And the book is about a little girl who has a backpack. And her mom is a real estate agent. The father is working. and the mom's just not even listening to her. She's like packing lunch, whatever she's doing, and the girl hates bananas, and she sticks a banana in there. And then Susanna goes to school and she fails a test, and she stuffs it in the backpack. And she gets an invitation to a party that she doesn't want to go to, and she stuffs it in the backpack. And she keeps stuffing everything in the backpack. And at night, she dreams that the backpack, she shoves it under her bed. She dreams that it becomes huge, and her bed is not balanced, and then it explodes. And she wakes up screaming, and her parents come into the bedroom, and they realize they keep putting pressure. They keep putting pressure on themselves, and by putting pressure on themselves, they're pushing that pressure onto their child. I wish that the gift I would give is reduce your pressure. Turn it down. I had a heart attack at 40 over stupid stuff. I had cancer at 44. Cancer, your immunity, I could be your immunity. Why? Because you're stretched too thin, because you worry, because you're imbalanced. And sometimes we have to go back to the essentials. What's really important?
I love that.
In 5 years, whatever it is that you're obsessing about right now, how important is that going to be in 5 years?
It's really important. Really important to have that perspective. Yeah. When in your life do you feel the most love?
Say it again.
When in your life do you feel the most love?
I felt love all different times. When I had cancer and my husband took care of me and held me up in a shower and washed my body, I felt so loved. When my mother came running from work because I had a headache and I couldn't function, and she came and took care of me, I felt loved. When my father turned to me the night before I got married and said, if you're not happy, you can come home anytime, I felt loved. When my brother bailed me out during COVID because we ran out of money, and he said, take mine and don't worry, I felt loved. Another story about my younger brother, the brother who's lost his eyesight, when he was, we would get a treat. Carvel would come, whatever the ice cream man, Mr. Softy would come, and we would get a treat. We were very poor, so we didn't get the treat often. And it was a very hot day, and I had a chocolate cone and he had a vanilla cone, and it was very hot, and my cone fell. And my brother, who was 3 years younger than me, made him probably 4 years old or 5 years old, said to me, take my cone. I can't eat it if you don't have a cone. I said, I don't even like vanilla. I was selfish. I said, no, you eat it. And he took his cone and he threw it on the floor. And that was my first lesson in sacrifice. I said, why'd you do that? He said, I cannot eat this if you don't have it. And I learned that from my younger brother. So what's worth having anything if the people around you are suffering? For my kids, when they've come to me and curled up in bed, or when they've brought their children home, or I look at their face when their kids do something and they're beaming with pride and they want to share that pride, I feel love, that I'm important enough that they want me to see it. I feel love all the time. Look for the love.
Your service to others is so apparent to me. Before I ask you the last question, which I could talk to you for hours.
Thank you.
But where can people learn about you? You have a website, social medias, find your books on Amazon, obviously, under Carol P. Roman and Britt London, but where can they find you?
They can find me, I do a lot on Facebook under Lady Phyllis. I always wanted to be a lady, and my daughter-in-law bought me 1 square inch in Scotland, and said, now you're a lady. So when we're picking a name, she chose Lady Phyllis. So, I had so many other names. So if you go on Facebook or Instagram, you'll see I do a lot on grief. Mm-hmm. I talk a lot about grief. I also run my specials. I do all kinds of specials with discounts so that people can get a cut, a break for a reading or whatever. I do galleries, and that's all announced on Facebook. And I put a lot of interesting stuff. So it's Lady Phyllis Medium. If they want to contact me, it's ladyphyllismedium@gmail.com. My website is www.ladyphyllis.com. I do have a Patreon the first Wednesday of every month, where I bring in experts to talk about all different aspects of this kind of stuff, psychics, pet communicators, grief counselors. I bring in somebody once a month to talk about I have sound healers, Reiki, all kinds of things. I have classes are available, and if they check my website, I put up discounted, like promo codes, and of course they can they can get the book. 366 affirmations and inspirations to live by. I keep mine in the bathroom, and every day I open it up to another page, and I opened it up to page 213, which says, I speak my truth and I'm proud of it.
Here we are doing just that. I love it.
Yeah.
And I do the cards. I've got I think it's Doreen Virtue made cards, and I click those and then reference that. I like your book also.
Thank you very much. I have tarot right here. I have all kinds of things all around me.
I think I have my second deck of cards right here.
Oh, the angel, yeah.
Yeah.
We're into angels. My son, you asked about something that my sons have taught me.
Mm-hmm.
One son has taught me a great deal about angels. The other son has taught me a great deal about social media. But the biggest gift they've given me is they made me a mom.
Yeah.
And we kind of figured it out together.
That's beautiful. And okay, I don't want to ask you the last question because I don't want to stop talking to you. But the last question is, and we can have fun with this too, because what was the expression you used when like looking for someone on the other side? There was like a code. Was code word what you used?
Well, I made up a code with my husband. Yeah, I had a code with him. Like I asked him for a specific sign. So you can ask, if you are looking for a message from your loved one, ask them for a specific sign, like show me a ladybug, or ask for something that will pop and look unusual. I asked my husband to show me a hummingbird. We don't get hummingbirds where I live. And sure enough, I got a hummingbird the next day. So it flew right at me. So I did that for my daughter-in-law. She was missing her mom, and I asked her mom to give us a sign. She showed me a dragonfly, and the next day they went out. They were surrounded by dragonflies. So ask for a message. Somebody who's listening to this, they're showing me a copper penny. So whoever that is, whoever that applies to, look for the copper pennies.
Look for the copper pennies. The final question, and you can integrate a symbol into this if you want to. In the event this recording were to last generations and your great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren get to listen to this recording, what is a message that you would share with them?
That even though they weren't here, they were loved. That everything we do today I'm part of a chain of people that came here and chose to survive and ensure their survival. And I hope that they take into account the long line of people, that they are the sum of all of our parts.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.